So there's a big problem when it comes to hamstring exercises for us runners, and I'll show you exactly what I mean in a second. But the thing about the hamstring muscle group is that it crosses both the back of the knee and the hip. We need to train the hamstrings action at both those joints at the same time, sometimes biasing this, sometimes biasing that. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So to start out with, if we actually just begin in a modified bridge position, your classic glute bridge would be simply heels in towards your butt, keeping a short lever in terms of what the legs are doing. And this short lever allows you to use those glutes rather than dominating with those hamstrings. Whereas if we go longer lever, easiest way to do that is foot up on a bench, a chair, a couch, a bed, whatever it needs to be. But create this longer lever so that you dig in with your heels and lift up. Straight away, you'll notice that your hamstrings probably start singing in comparison to your glutes. Yes, I still want you to clench your glutes, push your hips high, but those hammies should be working. In this position though, you'll see that my knees are slightly bent and I'm relatively neutral at the hip. It means that I'm holding those hamstrings in a fairly kind of mid-range. Okay, I'm not fully knee extended, not fully knee flexed. I'm not fully hip flexed, not fully hip extended. So this kind of mid-range position we're holding in should be a pretty strong position for those hamstrings, but a lot of us runners will feel quite weak because it's a neglected muscle group a lot of the time. So we're going to hold here for 10 seconds, 10-second holds, and then down, and just do 10 times 10-second holds with a short breather in between, kind of like that. Okay, and up again. Now, once you get good at these, we can do 5-second holds. So come up with 2, switch, count through to 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, switch it over, same on the other, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then down. As you get good at that, you can build that up to 10-second holds on a single leg. Your hamstrings will know all about that. So if that's holding a mid-range position and doing some isometric, static, mid-range strengthening, we can also think about how some exercises become more knee dominant. So working particularly through flexion, extension at the knee, hamstrings shortening to create flexion, lengthening to control extension. Yes, we can do Swiss ball hamstring curls or a hamstring curl machine in the gym, or even Nordics, if you know what they are. But there's something even more straightforward. I'm simply anchoring a mini band, putting the band around my heel, and from there, all I want to do is just pull up and down, up and down, heel in towards my butt, creating knee flexion against the resistance of the band. That knee flexion, working through those hamstrings to create it, you'll feel after a few reps, if you're using the right strength band, starts to build a bit of fatigue for those hammies. Now, we're going from, again, a fairly mid-range position into an inner range position with those hamstrings. Keep the ankle relatively dorsiflexed, allow the hip to flex, and you'll get into what should look pretty familiar, this running man type position. So it becomes a very relevant exercise for us runners in terms of strengthening them within the range that we're used to using them. If you were sprinting, and again, I know mostly on this channel we're talking about strengthening for distance running, but if you're sprinting, the part to actually get really strong at is eccentric control of this phase here, because this is where sprinters get injured. But for us, runners where we're long and slow, we don't get the same injuries that sprinters get in terms of your kind of classic hamstring tear that comes with that eccentric swinging forwards of the lower leg. What we end up with is a whole load of chronic tightness that comes from weakness and overuse for those hamstrings. A lot of the time, that manifests itself also in tendon issues, but that's a conversation for another day. This kind of thing, great for building a bit of strength. Now, if that's a knee dominant exercise, we can also think hip dominant exercise. And a hip dominant exercise, in this instance, is something as straightforward as a little arabesque. So little knee bend. From there, keeping the knee pretty stiff, we can either go into full-on arabesque mode like this, where we're flexing at the hip, closing this angle up here, keeping the hips square on, feeling the stretch through those hamstrings and coming back up. You see how the knee doesn't really move in terms of flexion extension. It's all movement coming from this pivot at the hip, lengthening the hamstrings pulling us back up to the top of the position. So you can either do arabesque like that, or you can think about it as a kind of a single leg RDL, Romanian deadlift type exercise. You can grab a couple of dumbbells, run them down the front of your leg if you wanted to add a little bit of resistance. Either way, that kind of slow eccentric lengthening and then concentric pulling back up, great for strengthening those hamstrings with a hip dominant movement. So we've got static, we've got knee dominant, we've got hip dominant. If as part of a training regime, you know that you need to do more hamstring work, just try and make sure that you're balancing out hip dominant and knee dominant. That way you're getting more of a complete hamstring strengthening set of exercises. Now, if you found that interesting, found that helpful, check out the Bulletproof Runners program, linked in the description down below. Little, short and sharp, little and often strength workouts for us runners. It's the sort of thing that most of us neglect, but most of us sorely need. Okay, I'll see you over there.